The circus has always promised spectacle, but not everything made it to center stage. For every famous name you've heard of, there were dozens more who performed just as fiercely, but faded into the shadows of history. These weren't the stars on the posters or the ones paraded by the ringmaster. They were the overlooked, the ones whose acts were strange enough to stop a crowd, but not enough to be remembered. Until now. In this video, we're bringing them back into the light. These are the 15 unseen circus freaks that actually existed, but never got famous. Number 15. Alice Doherty. Alice Elizabeth Doherty was born in Minneapolis in 1887 with fine golden hair covering her face and body. Her parents and siblings were normal, yet she carried the rare condition called hypertrichosis lanuginosa, the only recorded American case. Her dad, Aloysius, recognized what others would pay to see. By age 2, she was displayed in small storefront exhibitions around the Midwest. Journalists described her as bright and lively, blue-eyed and gentle. One called her as playful as a kitten. At 5, the hair on her cheeks measured 5 inches. By adolescence, nearly 9. She never joined a large circus, but toured quietly with her family, earning enough to live comfortably. Unlike other hairy marvels managed by famous promoters, Alice stayed modest, more curious than a celebrity. She retired in Dallas in 1915 and died there in 1933, at the age of 46. Beneath the fur the crowd saw, she was simply a kind woman who never asked to be unique. Number 14. Prince Maho. Well, almost nothing remains of him except a photograph of his banner. Half horse, half man, the lettering says, with a man crouched in costume, limbs wrapped in leather to mimic hooves. His name was Prince Maho, sometimes called Prince Eco Half or Pony Boy. He performed somewhere between the 1920s and 1930s, a time when showmen blurred anatomy and fantasy. Whether he was born different or built his illusion from prosthetics isn't known. His act likely fit among the dog men and camel girls, performers who mixed human features with animal imagery for the sake of wonder. Sideshows rarely cared for truth. The trick was to make people doubt what they saw. Maho seems to have done that well enough to earn his place on the banner, even if nothing else was written about him. The photograph is all that survived. The body gone, the myth still standing, half imagination, half flesh, and completely forgotten. Number 13. The 200-pound man eating chicken. Well, it's what it sounds like, or isn't. The 200-pound man eating chicken isn't some horror creature. It's a comedy prop, one of many inside MacArthur's traveling sideshow museum. The act plays with expectation. Open the box, and it's just a man in a chicken suit, eating fried chicken. MacArthur, a showman in the spirit of P.T. Barnum, leans into absurdity with pride. He performs sword swallowing, runs museum tours, and shares bizarre relics, from blockhead acts to giant baseball bats. Some items are authentic, but others, not. Some things are real, some are real fake, but it's all really entertaining, he says, echoing a quote from sideshow legend Ward Hall. MacArthur's act includes Dakota the Bearded Lady and newer performers learning the ropes. What's true or false isn't the point. Like Barnum's early exhibit, Joyce Heth, supposedly George Washington's 161-year-old nanny, the show thrives on mystery, illusion, and just enough truth to keep you wondering. MacArthur's goal is to keep the sideshow weird and alive. Number 12. Radhika and Dudika. Radhika and Dudika were born in 1888 in Orissa, India, joined at the chest by a narrow bridge of tissue. Their village saw them as bad omens, and their father, overwhelmed, nearly separated them himself before local monks intervened. The girls were taken in, named, and eventually sold to Captain Coleman, a showman who toured them across Europe. They often performed alongside Peter the Small, a dwarf billed as the world's tiniest man. By most accounts, Coleman treated them with kindness. But in 1902, Dudica developed tuberculosis. Hoping to save Radica, Dr. Doyen performed a filmed separation surgery in Paris. It was one of the first medical operations ever recorded. Dudica died shortly after. Radica followed a year later, having already contracted the disease. She spent her final months alone in a sanatorium. The footage of their surgery was later cut into exploitation reels and grindhouse circuits. Two girls born into myth died in obscurity, remembered more for the so-called film than their lives. Number 11. Lady Wonder. Lady Wonder wasn't a magician's trick. She was a black mare born in 1924 who spelled words with her nose and answered questions using a custom typewriter. Raised by Claudia Fonda in Richmond, Virginia, she was trained with lettered blocks from the time she was a foal. By age 3, she was answering math problems, solving riddles, and allegedly predicting elections, including Truman's 1948 win. Over the years, she was consulted by more than 150,000 people. Fonda said she had a sixth sense. Scientists weren't so sure. Parapsychologist J.B. Rhine tested Lady in 1927 and published results claiming she showed telepathic ability, but only when someone in the room already knew the answer. Critics like magician Milburn Christopher later exposed subtle trainer cues. Still, she predicted horse races, found missing children, and even uncovered a lost dog sold across state lines. Lady died in 1957, just shy of her 33rd birthday. Whether psychic or simply sensitive, she left behind decades of wonder. Number 10. The Eight-Footed Horse. It didn't perform tricks. In fact, it didn't race. It just stood there, and that was more than enough. In the early 1900s, one of the most bizarre circus attractions was a horse born with 4 extra legs. The limbs didn't work. They were just hung uselessly from its side like a forgotten second frame. Most likely, it had absorbed a twin in the womb, leaving the leftovers visible. But nobody called it science. They called it a wonder, a traveling oddity. Posters didn't explain. They just promised something you'd never seen before. And that was 100% true. People gathered just to stare at the strange creature that didn't fit nature's usual design. It was boxed, paraded, and sold to crowds like a living question mark. In an age where anomalies weren't studied, just displayed, the 8-footed horse became part of the inventory. Not as a marvel of biology, but as a guaranteed ticket sale. It didn't need to move or run. Its strangeness did all the work. Number 9. Ray Myers. Ray came into this world without arms in 1911, but he didn't grow up sheltered. His parents refused early sideshow offers, gave him tools, space, and time. He figured things out, learned to write with his feet, played harmonica by clenching it between his cheek and shoulder. Then came the guitar, played with a pick wedged between toes. He joined Ripley's Auditorium at the 1933 Chicago World's Fair, but the spotlight didn't suit him. Ray liked music, not gawking. So he went home, bought a car, and taught himself to drive. 1 foot steering, 1 foot on the pedals. He toured churches, radio stations, and small towns for decades, playing country songs with quiet skill and dry humor. By 1936, he was back on Ripley's airwaves, this time on his own terms. He played for anyone who'd listen, long past retirement age. Not once did he ask for pity or anyone's help. He asked for a stage and made sure the music carried further than the act. Number 8. Clifford Calverley. At just 22, Clifford Calverley stepped out onto a steel wire stretched high above the Niagara Gorge and crossed it in 6 minutes. That alone would have earned attention, but Calverley didn't stop there. He turned around, lay down mid-wire, sat in a chair, hung by his toes with nothing but space and stone beneath him. Onlookers winced. Some turned away. Newspapers tried to describe it. Nerve, recklessness, genius. The New York Times crowned him a champion. And he kept going. Another walk, this time in baskets. One show, he cooked food over the void. Another, he performed at night with lanterns strung beside him. A phrenologist once studied his skull and declared it marked by bravery, but Calverley didn't need a diagnosis. He knew what he was made of. In 1937, at 69, Life magazine ran his portrait. The Wire still tugged at him. After all those years, he hadn't let it go. It hadn't let go of him either. Number 7. Hannah Beswick. She didn't fear death. She feared being buried alive. In the mid-1700s, she made her doctor promise to never bury her unless he was sure. She left him £25,000 under one condition. He had to look at her corpse once a year, with a witness. When she died in 1758, Dr. Thomas White embalmed her and sealed her in an old clock case at the top of his home. Every year, he and a lawyer would pull back the curtain and inspect her face. Others claimed he showed her off more often. After Dr. White died, the body was moved to the Manchester Natural History Museum, where it became known as the Manchester Mummy. Her last public appearance lasted over a century. By 1868, authorities declared her dead and finally buried her. She had stayed above ground longer than most people stayed alive. What started as a fear became her legacy. Years of being watched, not forgotten. Number 6. The human projectile. Rosa Richter wasn't yet 15 when she let herself be launched from a cannon-shaped barrel in 1877. They called her Zazel. The act wasn't powered by gunpowder, just a complex system of springs and levers designed by the showman William Leonard Hunt. Smoke puffed out. She flew forward, caught by a net. 15,000 people saw that first flight at London's Royal Aquarium. From there, she toured across Britain, crossed into America, and eventually joined Barnum's Circus. No one had ever seen anything like it. Her act wasn't chaos. It was calculated, elegant, risky without being reckless. But the danger was never far. In 1891, during a show in New Mexico, she overshot the landing net. The injuries crushed her spine and ended her career. She survived, but she never performed again. Still, she had changed the shape of the spectacle. No one had ever turned themselves into a cannonball before, and everyone who followed knew exactly whose flight they were chasing. So, what do you think about her? Number 5. Alice Bounds. Alice was born in Calcutta with a condition that bent the rules of anatomy. Her arms and legs were misaligned, elbows where wrists should have been, knees where ankles should go. She didn't fight it. She leaned in. By 1880, she had crossed continents to perform at Coney Island's Dreamland Circus sideshow, introduced as the She-Bear, or Ursa, the Bear Girl. Crawling on all fours came naturally, but she took it further, draping herself in fur and moving with theatrical animal grace. Audiences didn't see a person with a musculoskeletal condition. They saw a creature. She let them. That was the game. She performed well into the early 1900s, but her life outside the show remains mostly unrecorded. What's certain is this. Alice helped build one of sideshow's most enduring tropes, when a real condition was folded into myth. In a world where difference was marketed, she created her own identity. She wasn't the act. She owned it. Number 4. Martin Van Buchel. Martin wasn't hard to miss. He'd ride through London with a painted pony, sometimes spotted, sometimes fully purple. He wore an 8-inch beard, carried a large bone, and advertised cures for everything from piles to fundamental ills. A student of famed anatomist John Hunter, Van Buchel practiced dentistry and surgery with flair. After his wife Mary died in 1775, he had her embalmed with help from William Hunter and William Cruikshank, fitted her with glass eyes and a lace dress, and displayed her in a glass coffin at home. Visitors were welcome between 9 and 1. When he remarried, his second wife insisted Mary be removed, so she ended up in Hunter's collection. Van Butchell charged £105 for dentures and posted bizarre ads in newspapers. Tooth, AKH, in 20 minutes, without drawing it. He died in 1814. Mary survived him until World War II, when her body was destroyed during bombing. Well, quack or not, his patients called him a cure. Number 3. Nikolai Kobalkov. Nikolai was born in 1851 without arms and only partial legs, but there wasn't much he couldn't do. One of 14 children, he grew up on a Russian farm, learned to feed himself, sew, write, thread needles, and even shoot a pistol using just his stumps, face, and jaw. Nothing about him read as fragile. He toured across Europe and America, performing in front of czars and queens, always precise and unflinching. Audiences watched him light candles, eat meals, and shoot with stunning accuracy. He married an Austrian actress named Anna, raised 6 children, and eventually settled in Vienna, where he built a toboggan ride in the Wurstelprater amusement park. In 1900, he even appeared in a silent film, one of the first performers with limb difference to do so. His life wasn't just a defiance of odds. It was full, proud, and deliberately built. When he died in 1933, there wasn't much left to prove. He'd already done it all. He was a real legend. Number 2. George Raimondo. George stood just 3.5 feet tall, but his voice could fill a city block. Born around 1765 in Lisbon, he dressed in oversized hats and coattails he had to carry to avoid tripping. He became known across England as the eccentric mimic, able to imitate nearly any animal, like dogs, hogs, donkeys, and birds, with eerie accuracy. An Italian showman took him to England for profit but kept the money. Raimondo escaped, wandered into a pub, and reportedly let loose a lion's roar that panicked everyone until they saw the grinning dwarf behind it. From then on, he made his living performing at public houses and fairs. He eventually appeared at the Bartholomew Fair in 1804. Though his act was odd, audiences loved him. According to Kirby's eccentric museum, he was rarely seen without a smile, always happy to perform, never bitter about what he'd been dealt. He didn't bark or neigh for fame, he did it to survive, and somehow made it joyful. Number 1. Chief Willie Bowlegs. Well, Willie Bowlegs wasn't born a chief, but he played one for the crowd. He was born in 1896, a full-blooded Seminole from Florida, and took on the borrowed name of an earlier tribal leader and leaned into the role sideshows wanted. Under the tents, he swallowed swords, threw knives, juggled fire, and even wrestled alligators. Audiences didn't see the man. They saw the image. Feathers, fringe, a wild persona crafted for white spectators hungry for myths. Willie worked the circuit for decades, from medicine shows to the big names like Ringling. He sold handmade tonics, performed nightly, and carried the same routine across state lines. In his later years, he settled in Chicago, far from the Everglades. His real story, what he believed, who he loved, how he saw himself, was buried beneath the costume. The man became the act. And like so many indigenous performers of his time, Willie lived inside someone else's idea of authentic. Whether he ever got to drop the mask, we'll never know. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you soon.